The Philadelphia Eagles just discovered a date that is going to turn the rest of the summer into a behind-the-scenes soap opera, my friend, and it completely changes how you should look at this roster over the coming months. The NFL finally made the 2026 trade deadline official for November 10th, in Week 10 of the calendar, later than usual. And that means the Eagles now have the entire summer, plus 9 weeks of regular season, to figure out exactly which players on their own roster have real value to other franchises. And if you think a championship team does not touch its roster before the season starts, you have not been paying attention to how Howie Roseman operates. They traded Harrison Bryant and Darian Kinnard last August. They traded John Mechie III in October. This is a GM who buys and sells with a coldness most franchises simply do not have. So the question that opens this summer is direct. Which Eagles players are, at this very moment, on the trade block, even if the fan base does not want to admit it? I am going to walk you through the 5 specific names the specialized media has already placed on this list of trade candidates, and among them, there is at least one that is going to make you uncomfortable. But first, if you are a die-hard Eagles fan, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because understanding who has trade value is understanding how champions stay on top while other teams sink after a title. Let's start with the most explosive and most improbable name on the entire list, and it is precisely the one nobody in Philadelphia wants to even consider: Jalen Carter. Before you start writing in the comments that this is insane, take a breath. The Eagles and Carter are still expected to reach a contract extension, and that remains by far the most likely outcome, a topic we already explored in detail in several videos on this channel. But the article itself raises an uncomfortable scenario. What if the two sides reach an impasse when training camp begins? What if the Eagles hold firm on their philosophy of wanting to see Carter produce more consistently and mature more before handing over the largest contract at the position in history? What if, in that impasse, it is Carter's own representation that requests a trade? Nobody in Philadelphia wants that scenario. Trading A.J. Brown and Jalen Carter within the span of a few months would be an image disaster for the franchise. The article makes clear this should not come to that point, but the simple fact that the name is on the list already shows the size of the tension a stalled negotiation could create. The second name is far less shocking, but perhaps the most likely of the entire list: Tanner McKee. And here the logic is direct. The Eagles could get a high day 3 draft pick for a backup quarterback who is in a real competition with Andy Dalton for the second quarterback spot, a battle we already discussed in a recent video. According to the reporters who covered OTAs and minicamp, it was Dalton who took the majority of the second-team snaps, not McKee. This was a spot believed to belong to McKee, but the Eagles clearly have other plans. McKee is in the final year of his rookie contract, which weighs even more heavily on the equation. There are teams in the league that need an upgrade at the QB2 position, and McKee offers exactly that. The article is direct in saying it does not seem to be a question of if McKee gets traded, but when. The third name is Fred Johnson, offensive tackle, and his situation is a surprise even to those who follow closely. Johnson is in a battle with Markel Bell for the third tackle spot on the roster this summer. The Eagles brought Johnson back on a 1-year contract this offseason, with the expectation that he would be the swing tackle behind Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, a role he performed well in over the last few years. But with Markel Bell further along in his development than expected, that makes Fred Johnson expendable. And here is the practical question. If Bell wins the third tackle spot, where does that leave Fred Johnson? He is a good tackle, with real value around the league as a backup, and even as a starter for some teams. It makes much more sense for him to be traded and get a real chance somewhere else than to sit as the fourth tackle in Philadelphia. The fourth name is Kelee Ringo, cornerback, and his story mixes cut and trade in the same conversation. Ringo has already been mentioned as a cut candidate this summer, but cut candidates are also trade candidates. And here is the detail. Ringo is an exceptional special teams player, one of the best gunners in the entire league in punt coverage. Teams value that kind of skill enormously, including the very team that employs Ringo today. He also has starting experience in the league and just turned 24. If Ringo is beaten out by Jacorian Bennett in the internal competition, maybe the Eagles keep Bennett and find a buyer for Ringo before the season starts. And just like several other names on this list, this is the final season of his rookie contract. The conclusion is interesting. Ringo can lock down a spot this summer by playing well, or he can play well enough for another team that values him more. Being a good special teams player is exactly what makes Ringo valuable on the market. The fifth and final name is Ty Robinson, defensive tackle, and his situation is purely a matter of excess talent at the position. The Eagles have bet on third-round defensive tackles before. That is exactly how Byron Young ended up in Philadelphia. So why would another team not do the same with Robinson? Maybe the Eagles should not give up on Robinson so quickly, but the truth is they are too deep at the position. Robinson is going to struggle to even find playing time on Sundays. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Moro Ojomo are going to play the majority of the snaps, and Byron Young is the favorite for the fourth interior tackle spot. And here is the extra layer to this story. What if Robinson plays well in training camp? Would the Eagles trade Byron Young, who is in the final year of his rookie contract? There are several layers to this decision. If Young beats out Robinson in the competition, maybe it is Robinson who becomes expendable, and the Eagles could sell him as a fourth-round pick entering his second year, even if he did not pan out in Philadelphia. The article bets that a defensive tackle will probably be traded before the season starts. The only question is which one. Here is the bottom line. What this list of 5 names really reveals is not weakness, it is the opposite. Bad teams do not have players with trade value. Bad teams have holes they cannot fill. The Eagles have the inverse problem. Excessive depth at positions like defensive tackle, offensive tackle, and even backup quarterback, to the point where they need to decide which good players they will have to sacrifice because they cannot all fit on the 53-man roster. It is exactly that surplus of talent that Howie Roseman turns into future draft capital, year after year, buying cheap when opportunity arises and selling high when the depth allows it. It is the trademark of a franchise built to stay on top across multiple cycles, not just for a single season. With the trade deadline made official for November 10th, with 5 names already circulating publicly as trade candidates, and with Howie Roseman having the entire summer and 9 weeks of the season to decide who has real value, the question left for you, Eagles fan, is direct. Of all these 5 names, Jalen Carter, Tanner McKee, Fred Johnson, Kelee Ringo, and Ty Robinson, which one would you accept seeing the Eagles trade without flinching? And which one would you defend tooth and nail to keep in Philadelphia? Drop your opinion in the comments. Do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I will be back later to keep you updated with the latest Eagles news.